This is a fictional romantic story created for entertainment purposes only. I sent a message begging for baby formula to the completely wrong number. And the man who answered? He wasn't just a stranger. He was the most powerful and dangerous man in the city. And he caught me as I fell. The message was sent before I could stop myself. I had been staring at the cracked screen of my phone for almost 20 minutes, trying to gather enough courage, or maybe enough desperation, to ask someone for help. My thumbs were shaking. Not from the cold, though New York in November had a way of cutting right through you, even inside an apartment with a broken radiator. They were shaking because I had never in my life sent a message like this to anyone. Not once in 26 years. I typed it slowly, read it twice, and pressed send before logic could talk me out of it. Hey, I'm so sorry to bother you. I know this is a lot to ask, but I'm completely out of baby formula, and I don't have anything until Friday. Is there any way you could help me, even just with enough to get through the next 2 days? I'll pay you back, I promise. I meant to send it to my coworker, Priya. We'd exchanged numbers a few weeks ago when I started the late shift at the diner downtown. She had mentioned once that she had a niece around the same age as Lily, and that she kept extra formula at home because her sister was always running out. I thought maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't think less of me for asking. What I didn't realize, not until 3 hours later, was that I had typed in the wrong number. But by then, none of that mattered anymore. By then, I was already on the floor. The day had started like every other day since Lily was born 6 months ago. I woke up at 5:30 to her crying, which meant I'd only gotten 2 hours of sleep after the closing shift. I changed her, fed her the last of the formula mixed with a little more water than the instructions said was safe, and I hated myself for it. I hated every second of standing there stretching it out, knowing she wasn't getting enough. And then I put her back down while I got ready for the morning shift. The diner opened at 6. I was usually there by 5:50, aproned up, smelling like syrup and burned coffee before the sun had fully risen. That morning, I dragged myself through 8 hours of orders and dirty plates, and one customer who complained so loudly about her eggs that the manager pulled me aside and told me, very quietly, that I needed to smile more if I wanted to keep my tips up. I smiled. I always smiled. What choice did I have? Lily's father had been gone since she was 3 months along. No goodbye, no explanation, just a cleared-out drawer, and a voicemail I still hadn't deleted because some broken part of me thought it might be the last time I ever heard someone say they loved me. My mother was in Phoenix with her new husband, and a politely distant relationship with the idea that her daughter was struggling. My friends, the ones I used to have, before the pregnancy, before the exhaustion, before I stopped being fun to be around, had faded out of my life the way people do when you have nothing left to offer. I had Lily, I had the diner, I had an apartment that cost too much for what it was, and a landlord who had already knocked on my door twice this month about the late payment. And I had a phone with a cracked screen and not enough contacts in it to ask for help without feeling like I was imposing on someone who barely knew me. By 3 p.m, after the second shift ended, I walked to the dollar store 3 blocks away and counted out what I had left. $4.70. The cheapest small can of formula was 7-something. I stood in the aisle for a long time, just staring at the shelf, my jaw tight, my eyes stinging in that particular way they do when you're too tired to cry properly. A woman walked past me with a full cart. She didn't look at me. Nobody ever does. I walked home. I don't remember sitting down on the kitchen floor. I remember opening the refrigerator out of habit, finding nothing that mattered, and then my knees just gave out. Not dramatically, not the way things happen in movies. It was quiet, slow, like my body had simply run out of argument. I sat down against the lower cabinet with Lily and her bouncer beside me, both of us in the late afternoon light that came through the window and turned everything the color of rust. I sent the message. Then I closed my eyes and let myself rest. Just for a second. Just for 1 second of not holding everything together. I must have fallen asleep, or passed out. I'm not sure which. I do know that when I opened my eyes, the light had changed, my neck hurt, and there was someone knocking on my door. Not a knock I recognized. Not the nervous tap of a neighbor, or the impatient rap of the landlord. This was 3 even, unhurried strikes. The knock of someone who was used to being answered. I don't know how I got to the door. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I grabbed the door frame to steady myself, turned the deadbolt, and pulled it open. He was not what I expected from anything. He was enormous. That was the first thing my brain registered, purely on a survival level. The sheer scale of him. Well over 6 feet, shoulders that blocked the hallway behind him. The kind of physical presence that rearranges the air in a room just by entering it. He was wearing a dark jacket over a black shirt, sleeves pushed up enough that I could see the edge of a tattoo curling over his forearm. Dark ink, intricate, the kind that didn't come from a flash sheet. His jaw was sharp, his expression unreadable, his eyes a shade of dark brown that somehow looked both calm and dangerous at the same time. Beautiful. The word moved through my mind before I had the sense to stop it. Criminally, unfairly beautiful, in the way that things are when they've also been designed to hurt you. He was holding a paper bag. 2 of them, actually, and he was looking at me the way people look at things they didn't expect to find. "Chloe Anderson," he said. It wasn't a question. My throat closed. I didn't know this man. I had never seen him before in my life. And he knew my name. "Who are you?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to. Something crossed his face. Not quite softness, but a loosening around the edges, like a held breath being let go. Someone who got a message that wasn't meant for me. He looked past me for just a moment, toward the sound of Lily starting to stir in her bouncer, then back at me. "You've got formula in here, 2 cans, and some other things." I stared at the bags, at him, at the bags again. "I don't understand," I said. "I know." He said it simply, without impatience. "You don't have to. You just have to let me give you these." My vision did something strange then. The edges went soft. My hand tightened on the door frame, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't nearly enough. Because the floor seemed to tilt, and my knees buckled, and the last thing I registered before the darkness came in was the feeling of 2 large hands catching me before I hit the ground. Strong, steady, like walls, like something I hadn't felt in a very long time. I woke up on a couch that was softer than anything I had ever owned. For a few seconds I just lay there, breathing, taking inventory. Ceiling I didn't recognize. Warm amber light from a lamp somewhere to my left. The smell of something cooking. Real food, not the microwave kind. And underneath all of it, the sound of Lily making her small, contented noises. The sound she only made when she was fed and held and safe. I sat up too fast. The room tilted. "Easy." His voice came from across the room. He was standing near a kitchen island, sleeves still pushed up, watching me with those dark eyes that gave nothing away. On the other side of the island, a woman I didn't know was holding Lily against her shoulder, swaying slightly, like she'd done it 1,000 times. "Where am I?" My voice came out rough. "Who is she? Why does she have my daughter?" "Her name is Rosa. She's worked for me for 11 years. He set down whatever he was holding and came around the island, stopping a few feet from me. Close enough that I had to tilt my head to look at him properly. "She raised 3 kids of her own. Your daughter is safer with her right now than she's been all day." It stung, the way he said it. Not cruel, factual. Which somehow made it worse. "You don't know anything about my day," I said. "I know enough." He pulled a chair from nearby and sat down across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped between them. In any other setting, he would have looked casual. But there was nothing casual about Dante Ferrara. I knew his name by then. Rosa had said it when I was half conscious, a gentle correction when I called him the man who caught me, and the name had landed in my chest with a weight I couldn't explain. You've been running on nothing for days. You're underweight. You were running a low fever when I got you to the couch, and you sent a message to a stranger asking for baby formula because you had nobody else. I looked at my hands. I sent that message to the wrong number. I know. Then why are you here? He was quiet for a moment. Not the silence of someone thinking up an answer, but the silence of someone deciding how much truth to give. Because the message needed to go somewhere. I looked up at him. He wasn't smiling. He didn't seem like a man who smiled often or easily. But there was something in his expression that I couldn't classify. Something that sat between curiosity and concern, and something older than both. You should know who I am, he said. Before this goes any further, I already know you're not a coworker who keeps extra formula at home. The corner of his mouth moved, almost. No, I'm not. He held my gaze. I run things in this city. Things that aren't legal. Things that come with a certain amount of risk to people who get close to me. He said it the way someone reads from a document, clear, deliberate, no attempt to soften it. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because you deserve to know what you walked into before you decide what you want to do next. The room was very quiet. Across the space, Rosa murmured something soft to Lily, who gurgled back. Are you dangerous? I asked. It was a stupid question. The answer was written on him, in the ink on his arms, in the way his eyes had taken inventory of my apartment hallway in under 2 seconds, in the fact that he had found me at all when I had sent a message to a random wrong number. To some people, he said, not to you. I don't know why I believed him. Maybe I was still too depleted to be properly afraid. Maybe some part of me, the part that had been running alone for 6 months, the part that was so tired of being the only person standing between Lily and nothing, recognized something in the way he said it. Not a promise made lightly, a statement of fact. I want to go home, I said, after Lily eats, of course, and I want to pay you back for the formula. Something shifted in his expression. Chloe, I mean it. I don't take things for free. He studied me for a long moment. All right, he said finally. We can discuss that later. I knew what later meant. I knew it the same way I knew a lot of things about this man that I had no logical basis for knowing, through instinct, through the particular frequency of his silences. He had no intention of taking my money, but he also, I realized, had no intention of making me feel small for the offer. That was not a small thing. Rosa brought Lily to me then, and I took her and held her against my chest and felt something inside me come unknotted. Just a little. Just enough. He didn't leave the room, but he moved away, giving me the corner of the couch like it was my territory, and he was respecting the boundary of it. He made calls, quiet and brief, in a language I half recognized as Italian. He signed something Rosa brought to him. He did not look at me in a way that made me feel watched. All of it somehow deliberate. I stayed for 2 hours. I told myself it was because Lily needed to finish eating, then because the night had gone cold and I was still dizzy, then because Rosa had put food in front of me, and my body betrayed every instinct I had about accepting things from people I didn't know by eating all of it without apology. He sat across from me while I ate, and didn't make it strange. He asked me how old she was. I told him. He asked her name, and I told him that too. And something about the way he said Lily, quiet, careful, like he was being gentle with it, made the back of my throat hurt in a way I didn't want to examine too closely. You've been alone since the beginning? He asked. Since before the beginning. I didn't mean to say it like that. The honesty surprised me. He didn't offer me sympathy. I was grateful for that. He just nodded once, and then he said, "That's too long." Later, he had a car take me home. A man I didn't recognize drove, and the back seat was warm, and the streets were dark and wet with the beginning of rain. And I sat with Lily asleep in my arms, and the 2 paper bags of formula at my feet, and tried to understand what had just happened to me. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I already knew who it was. "The doorman downstairs has your name. If you need anything before you have a chance to get back on your feet, you can reach me at this number. You don't have to use it, but it's there." I read the message twice, then a third time. I told myself I wasn't going to save the number. I saved the number. The next morning, I was back at the diner at 5:50, aproned up, smiling the smile that kept the tips coming. But something had changed overnight. A small, stubborn thing that I couldn't name and wasn't ready to look at directly. I caught myself thinking about the way he'd said, "That's too long," not with pity, not with the uncomfortable guilt of someone witnessing suffering they want to escape, with recognition, like someone who understood what it felt like to carry things alone, and had long ago stopped pretending it was fine. I didn't text him that day, or the next. On the 3rd day, my landlord slid a notice under my door. Final warning. 5 days. I sat on the edge of my bed with Lily in my lap, and the notice in my hand, and I looked at the number in my phone for a very long time. Then I put the phone face down on the mattress and went to make her a bottle. An hour later, I picked the phone back up. I typed, "I need to ask you something. And I need you to know that I'm not asking because I don't have any other option this time. I'm asking because I think, for some reason I can't fully explain, you're the only person I actually trust right now, and that terrifies me." I stared at it. My thumb hovered over the send button. A knock at the door. 3 even, unhurried strikes. I hadn't sent the message yet. He was already there. I opened the door, still holding the unsent message on my phone. He looked at it in my hand, then at my face. He didn't ask. He waited, like he always seemed to wait, without impatience, without pressure, with a stillness that felt less like patience and more like absolute certainty that the world would move at exactly the pace he decided. "How did you know?" I asked. I didn't. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out an envelope, set it against the door frame, unhurried. "I had someone look into your situation, the building, the landlord." His jaw tightened slightly. "He's been charging you above market and stalling your maintenance requests for 8 months. That's not something you should be fighting alone." I looked at the envelope. I didn't touch it. Dante. His name in my mouth felt unfamiliar and too familiar at the same time. "If there's money in that envelope, I can't take it." "There isn't." He met my eyes. "It's a letter from a housing attorney. She's already reviewed your lease. You have a case." He paused. "It won't cost you anything. Consider it a resource, not a gift." I stood there in the doorway and felt something I hadn't felt in so long I'd almost forgotten the shape of it. The sensation of someone standing beside you instead of across from you. Not solving things on your behalf. Not making decisions over your head. But handing you a tool and trusting you to use it. I stepped back from the door. I didn't say come in. He understood anyway. And he did, quietly. The way he did everything. He noticed the eviction notice on the kitchen table. He looked at it for 1 second and then looked away. And I was grateful he didn't comment on it because if he had, I might have come apart right there. "Tell me about the 5 days," he said instead. So I did. I sat at my own kitchen table with Lily on my lap, and I told him, slowly at first, then faster. The way things come out when you've been holding them too long, and someone finally asks in a way that feels like they actually want to know. The savings that had run out. The shifts cut back after I missed 2 weeks when Lily was sick, and I had no one to watch her. The father of my child who had left behind not just absence but debt. Things in my name I hadn't known about until the statements started arriving, one after another like bad news in a queue. He listened. He didn't interrupt once. When I was done, I felt hollowed out in a way that was somehow cleaner than the hollow I'd been living inside, like the difference between a wound and a scar. "You've been surviving," he said, "when you should have been living." That's a very poetic thing to say for a man who runs illegal operations in a major metropolitan city. Something in him shifted. His mouth curved, actually curved, a real one this time, small and brief and devastating, and he looked at me with something warm in those dark eyes that I had no defense against. "I contain multitudes," he said. I laughed. I hadn't expected to, and it came out unsteady, but it was real. And when it faded, the air in the apartment felt different. Lighter. Like something that had been held too tight had finally been let go. He stayed for an hour. He played with Lily on the floor of the living room, and she grabbed at his finger with both of her small hands, and he let her, and the image of it. This enormous, tattooed, dangerous man, sitting cross-legged on my worn rug, looking down at my daughter like she was something worth marveling at, did something permanent to me that I wasn't ready to name. Before he left, he said, "I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly." I nodded. "Do you want help? Not because you have no other choice, not because you're desperate, because you want it." He held my gaze. "There's a difference, and I won't offer it again if the answer is no." I thought about the last 6 months. I thought about the eviction notice and the watered-down formula and the smile I kept fixed to my face at the diner. I thought about how long I had been trying to be enough. Enough money, enough energy, enough love, enough for both of us, while running on empty. "Yes," I said. "I want help." He nodded once. Like that settled it. What followed was not a transformation. That's not what happened. There was no morning when I woke up, and everything was fixed. No moment when Dante waved some powerful hand and rearranged the world into something manageable. It was smaller than that, and more real. The attorney contacted the landlord's office, and within a week, the tone of his notices changed entirely. 2 of the debt accounts linked to my ex-boyfriend's activity were disputed with documentation Dante's people helped me gather. The diner manager, who had apparently been short-staffing me out of personal preference rather than business need, suddenly found it very easy to give me consistent hours. I didn't ask how. I had started to understand that some things with Dante came with a grace period of not knowing. He came back, twice that week, then 3 times the next. Always with a reason. Paperwork to review, something Lily needed, some logistical thing. Always leaving when I signaled I was done. Always respecting the edges I drew without making me feel like I owed him anything for it. On a Tuesday evening in late November, he brought dinner. Actual dinner, in containers from a restaurant I had never been able to afford. And we sat at my kitchen table while Lily slept in the next room, and the city did its dark, loud, relentless thing outside the window. He told me about growing up in Brooklyn, about his father, about the moment he decided that the world ran on power, and that he'd rather have it than lose to it. He told me these things carefully, the way you tell someone things you don't usually tell people, watching to see what they do with it. I didn't flinch. I didn't judge. I asked him questions, real ones. He looked at me after a moment of silence and said, "You're not afraid of me." "I was," I said honestly, "the first night. And now?" I looked at him across my small kitchen table. This man who had walked into my life through the wrong number on my broken phone, who had caught me when I fell, and then, more quietly and more carefully, helped me back to standing. Who had never once made me feel like his help came with a price. Who had learned Lily's feeding schedule without being asked. "Now I think," I said slowly, That the most dangerous thing about you is that you're actually good, somewhere underneath all of it. And I didn't expect that. He was very still. Then he reached across the table and put his hand over mine, large and warm and steady, the same hands that had caught me in that doorway. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall on New York, silent and unhurried, coating the fire escapes and the taxi rooftops and the corner stores and the whole loud, grinding, beautiful city in something clean and white and new. Inside, Lily slept. The food got cold because neither of us moved. And I thought, with a clarity I hadn't felt in longer than I could remember, I am exactly where I am supposed to be. Not because a message went to the wrong number. Not because I was desperate or lucky or saved by anyone. Because I asked for help. Because I let someone in. Because sometimes the smallest, most accidental act of reaching out is the thing that changes everything. And I had finally stopped running from the possibility that I didn't have to do this alone. I sent a message to the wrong person, and that one mistake changed my entire life. But here's what I need to know from you. Do you think Dante should have shown up? After finding out the message wasn't meant for him, he had every reason to ignore it. Most people would have. Do you think he did the right thing? And be honest with me. If you were in my place, exhausted, alone, holding your daughter and the last of your pride, would you have accepted his help? Or would you have closed that door? Because I almost did. And sometimes I still wonder what would have happened if I had. If this story made you feel something, if any part of Chloe's journey sat with you the way it sat with me living it, subscribe. Because she has more to say, more to survive, and more to love. You don't want to miss what comes next.